Hi, this is John Delancey, and you are listening to the Geekcast Radio Network.
You're tuned in to Steve Megatron on Altered Geek.
Hello and welcome to Altered Geek. I'm your host, Steve Megatron Phillips. Today, I'd like to welcome to the program Andrew Davis, founder of PopAnimeComics.com and host of the interview podcast Pop Anime Comics Lounge, and a Comic-Con panelist. Welcome, Andrew.
Oh man, I'm excited to be here, and thank you for having me on.
No problem. So, just getting right off the bat here, tell the listeners a little bit about yourself.
So I'm 26. I like long walks on the beach at sunset. I created a website called Pop Anime Comics where I write about anime comics and pop culture, and primarily wrestling as well. And then out of that spun a entire interview-based podcast where I was doing interviews written form, and then I developed a podcast. And while all that was going on, I was doing all these public speaking events at Comic Cons and anime cons, and it just kind of all led down the same path where now I'm running that as a side hustle, and one thing boosters another thing, and it's just led me down this amazing path, and this is just another stepping stone that I'm crossing into and being on this show. And I'm sure we're going to talk about it, and we can unpack all that, but I don't want to steer this too quickly.
Yeah, and so what's been your geeky inspiration for it? Like, I know that obviously you have a deep inspiration for the pop culture and anime for sure.
So I was growing up, I just fell in love with Toonami, and I was like 4, 5, 6 watching Dragon Ball Z, loved Saturday morning cartoons, and most kids grew out of it, and I never grew out of it, and I just fell in love with it. I didn't know what anime was, so I first fell in love with anime, and I didn't know what it was. I just thought, oh man, this is a really cool style and really cool cartoon, and I'm watching something like Outlaw Star at the age of 7, 8, and I just fell in love with it, and it never stopped, and it hasn't stopped to this day. And then as you get older, you start wanting to say, hey, I want to be part of this, but I'm not an animator, I'm not a comic writer, I'm not an artist. What can I do? And I started on YouTube, just breaking it down, and then my story is unique, and I'll give this short, condensed version. I got demonetized on YouTube before getting demonetized was cool. And so I got demonetized 2013, 2014 realm, and then I just said, hey, I'm doing this on YouTube. I'm not making any money. Let me see if I can make some money by creating a website. And then, as stated in the intro, just giving a little bit of background, that led to the podcast. And at the same time, I was doing all these panels. And with the panels, I just didn't like what anybody was doing at a con. And I thought I could do a better job than they can. And I don't want to sound egotistical or boost my ego, but I feel that with a lot of the panels I do, I wouldn't say I'm better, but I'm providing a different light on a topic. And so that was the inspiration on that side, where I just thought I could shed a light in a different way, and people could have, oh, that's really interesting, I didn't think of it like it that way type of moment.
Yeah, that's a little bit of a interesting development, kind of joining a convention and being a panelist and getting to bring to light new questions instead of what you normally hear, which is a lot of the same repetition across various conventions and panels. So what are some interesting panels that you've been a part of?
So I created this little baby called Exploring Dystopia Through Attack on Titan, The Walking Dead, and Fahrenheit 451. And I'm all by myself when I do panels. So I'm a one-man show. I do the entire panel by myself. And that is one of my most interesting panels because I'm comparing and contrasting those three works. And we're getting into a lot of the core ideas. We're comparing sometimes one or two of them, how they're similar, how they're different. And people have a real, they love it because they love Attack on Titan, which is a very popular anime. The Walking Dead is an extremely popular comic They sell anywhere from 40,000 to 70 or 80 plus thousand issues every single month
Oh wow.
as a comic book. And it might be a little bit less right now because it's off of its heyday a little bit, but even still, and then the TV show is attracting over 10 million people every single week when it's on. And those are the ratings at the TV show The Walking Dead. So these are popular works. And then Fahrenheit 451 is just a classic book. And so when I break that down, I give a lot of insight into things, and people are like, "Oh, I didn't even think of that. I didn't see that." And people, I did it. The best one I did was at Anime NYC, and their first convention, I think, in 2018. And one of the cool things about that was the room was silent. It was packed with 200 plus people, and I could have dropped a pin because everybody in that room was completely engrossed because they were like, I'm hearing this for the first time. And about 6 months, and I did the panel prior to that, and the actual date is slipping, but it's on my website on my panel list. And about a year later, Tony Moore did a special cover for the Attack on Titan manga. And so arguably I was one of the first people, if not the first people, to have a public event and a public forum actually coming up with this idea. And arguably, and if somebody wants to prove me wrong, they can, but I'm going to take credit for it for right now. I invented this concept and I introduced it in a public forum first in the United States, comparing Attack on Titan to The Walking Dead to Fahrenheit 451. And so
Nice.
that's my most interesting panel I've done, and arguably it was also my fourth panel I did at a convention, and the first time I did it I sold it out too, and there were paid speakers who didn't have sold out rooms because most panels don't get paid, and it's very enjoyable when you're not getting paid and you're the new kid on the block and you're more or less kicking at the asses of people who are getting paid and who went out and had to pay and hire and work with their agent, and you're kicking their ass with a better idea as a newbie, because there's nothing more satisfying than that feeling. And I knew it. The second the room was just filling up, and I'm sitting up at the front of the room when I first did it, and row 1 gets filled up, row 2 gets filled up, row 3 gets filled up, and then it keeps going. I'm like, oh my God, I can do this as a hobby and possibly make money off of this.
Yeah, that's definitely interesting when you discover something that you could do really well for the first time. You're like, I could probably turn this into a moneymaker.
Oh, I'm not talented at all. It just happened that I created a concept and that did the research. And the first time I did it, it was good. It wasn't great. Now I've done it maybe like 6, 7 times. It's really good, and I know my craft. And it's just I'm not that smart. I really am not. I just happen to have thought of an idea, and nobody was doing it, and I thought it was an obvious idea, and I still think it's an obvious idea. And I'm surprised, from my recollection, nobody has copied me on it.
Well, that's also because, you got to face it too, we're kind of an unoriginal bunch. As podcasters and as people that go to these conventions, you do hear a lot and see a lot of the same thing over and over. So when something does stand out, it draws the attention more so. And yeah, I mean, I can't imagine why people wouldn't be kind of taking this concept and running with it with different series, or
It's mind blown to me that nobody has done this idea and tried to do it better, because I do a lot of other panels too. I have about 13 in my repertoire now. And so I'll look at somebody's panel and I'll say, oh, that's interesting. Now let me see what I can do with that. And what does that inspire me to do? And I'm not saying I'm going to steal somebody's panel directly, but I have a Osamu Tezuka panel, and he's the godfather of anime. And a lot of people have done his work, have broken it down. I tend to take a more basic approach, and I tend to give a lot of back history in my version of that. And I know somebody who does something very similar. And wouldn't say we're friends, but we're not enemies. We're acquaintances. We work in the same profession. There's certain things I won't step on his toes on, and he's not going to step on certain things of mine. And then we sometimes overlap. And so I'm not stealing somebody's panel, but I'm also reiterating information to some degree. And I'm surprised that hasn't happened with my Attack on Titan, Walking Dead, and Fahrenheit 451 panel. And I'll check about 100 cons a year to look at their panelist, and I haven't seen it in the 4 years it's been out. And it's just shocking to me that nobody has said, this is a really good idea. Let me see how I can make it better. And I don't think they could, because I live and breathe this panel, and I don't want to encourage anybody to go and do it. But at the same time, I'm a strong believer in competition, where I want somebody to come up with a better panel with my concept and put it on steroids, because then I'm going to have to answer back to them with something even better.
Totally. Yeah, that's amazing that you've been doing it that long and nobody's copied it. But conventions are definitely something that you have to be fully prepared for when you're doing that. I've not had the pleasure of running a panel myself, although I've thought about it. Mostly because I've just not really known what I wanted to talk about. But yeah, I'm kind of the same in regards to not being fully like as smart as, some people that come up with these really inventive things. I kind of go with the flow with it. But yeah, I mean, if you're passionate about the topics that you're talking about and know a lot about them, and then are enthusiastic about doing the research, I mean, that's definitely something that leads to an interesting panel.
I mean, one of the things that I want to clarify is I'm not that smart. I'm a really good researcher. And I figured out that I know how to find things. So, and with this panel, it's really insightful, and it's on a whole new level, and it's really a brilliant panel, and it's really educational, and it's thought provoking. But the reason why I say I'm not that smart, I'm not. This isn't. I just know where to find something. I know where to start an idea, and it's like a little spark. And in the way that I get into and build panels is I have a spark, and then I have an idea. And the way this entire panel came up is that me and my friend were drinking in college, and Attack on Titan was playing, and it was watching, and we were talking about it. And then I just threw out an idea, sort of half intoxicated. And then my friend was like, that's actually really smart. And it also happened to be kind of like, I think the 50th or 60th year. And there was something going on with the Library of Congress. And I was in D.C. because I studied abroad in D.C. And like all these things just happened. And it was all somewhat due to the surroundings that I was in, very much. And this is why I say I'm not that smart, because a lot of my panels have to do with circumstances or the surroundings, yet I know how to do my research, and I do thorough research. And it's the same thing with my podcast. I'm not smart. I just know how to do a lot of research, and I know how to find things, and I know how to find really good information. Because one of the things that I do in this panel, and this Attack on Titan panels, I explain how The Walking Dead was developed. And most people have no idea how that comic book came about, and the short version is that it was pretty much developed in Kentucky in a light bulb ordering room by Robert Kirkman. And most people have no idea how that story, and how arguably the greatest comic book in the last 50 years, and one of the most successful comic books in merchandising and licensing and TV and as a comic book and the issues it sells, was developed in a lighting store in their back ordering room. When he was supposed to be ordering things for the store, he was more or less writing comics. And that's how that entire thing started. And that information was publicly available in the colorized version of Walking Dead 1. It's publicly accessible, yet nobody knows where to find it, because only real Walking Dead fans know about that, and they actually read the back of every single issue. And that information is publicly available. I just know where to find things. And that's what makes a really good panelist. That's what makes a really good interviewer. That's what makes a really good presenter, is that they know how to find things, and they know how to find interesting things that keep people in tuned.
Wow, I didn't even know any of that about The Walking Dead before that. I mean, I've not been a fan of it or watched it, but you can't deny what it has done for the medium in general. And to hear how it started is really interesting.
Yeah, no, and so that's what makes speaking interesting. That's what makes panels interesting. And when you have all the reiterating of information, but nobody's saying anything new, it's not a bad panel, but it's not insightful. And I'm not saying. I guess I'm smart in the sense that I know where to find information. I know how to convey it, and I know how to take something that isn't well known and then make it well known, and introduce it and make it interesting, and I know how to modulate my voice. I mean, I could say the same story that I just told, and the reason why I told that is that this is now interesting. When somebody listens to this, they're going to be like, oh, that's a really interesting fact, that if I'm at a bar tomorrow night and there's a girl and I want to mention something that's a really interesting story, there you go. And so that's what I do in a lot of my panels, is that I try to find interesting tidbits of information, because that's what really gets people into it and keeps them in their seats, staying and involved and engaged.
So you also mentioned that you do interviews on your podcast between voice actors, comic writers, artists, and wrestlers and cosplayers and everything. So what are some of your favorite interviews that you've conducted, and like the genre of them, whether it be voice actor or wrestler or whatnot?
So it all depends. The problem with a lot of these people is that some people are very open, and they're very honest, and they don't really care, because either they have enough money or they know that whatever they say is not going to affect their job in any which way. I mean, we all have work, we all have bosses, we all have people that we answer to. And so, I mean, there's been a few that have been off the top of my list. Chuck Dixon is one of them. Chuck Dixon, for those who don't know, he and I forgot his partner. His partner slipping created Bane. So the supervillain Bane in Nightfall, and he was writing a lot of Nightfall, and he was kind of the head Batman writer during the '90s, and he's one of the most well-known Batman writers during the '90s. In fact, he's probably actually the '90s Batman writer. And so he is a conservative, and he is very open about that. And he is honest. He wrote the graphic novel Clinton Cash, not to get too political here, but he's a well-known conservative in the comic realm. And so he was very honest on my podcast, because everybody knows that, DC knows that. And we had a real conversation about how DC Comics, how Marvel Comics, how comics in general has changed due to the political landscape and what has occurred, and how certain people won't get work because of their political views, and how back in the day, and I interviewed his boss at the time, who was the Batman editor, Denny O'Neil, prior to interviewing him early on in my career, and that Denny is a very progressive person. He tends to have progressive politics due to his upbringing, and if you want to know more about that, I'm going to plug myself here. You can go listen to that, because we talk about that, and we talk a lot about that with Denny. But during that time, Chuck was explaining the difference of DC Comics and the comic realm, as far as what your beliefs mean for work and what they mean now. And so it's very interesting. That's why it's one of my favorite interviews, because it is so honest, and he's not hiding behind, a veil of saying, well, I can't say A, B, C, and D and be real, and call us, a ball and a strike. And Chuck did that in the interview, and that in very few times, even as good as I like to think I am as an interviewer, that is very hard to get, because everybody is so protective of their brand and their name and whatever else they want, their job maybe, or their family, or something to that degree, or a company. and Chuck just kind of laid it all out on the line. And it's one of my favorite interviews because it's nice to have that, and it's really refreshing in today's society when somebody just calls it down the middle and calls and says, hey, this is what I am, this is what I do, this is how I feel, and my fans either love me or you hate me, but here I am, and deal with it. So that's like one of my favorite interviews. And then wrestlers are always fun too, because it's always fun to talk about fake fighting. And it's something I can't do. It's something that I don't want to do. If I want to be a voice actor, I could go and train to be a voice actor. If I want to write comics, I could go do that. I probably can't draw because I'm not artistically talented in that realm. But if I really wanted to, I could practice, I could take classes, and I could do something. Might not be very good, but I could theoretically do it, in which it is physically possible. And if I want to cosplay, I would drop 20 pounds, and I would work for the next 8 months and get a six-pack. And then I would just be Hawkman and be shirtless. And I could do that too if I really wanted to, and cosplay. I can't wrestle. I don't want to get hit. I don't want to be suplexed. I enjoy it. I find it interesting. I can manage a wrestler, but I can't wrestle. And so it's fun to interview things and people that you can't do their craft. And I love the psychology, and I love breaking it down. And some of these people are the funniest people you will ever speak to. And I have plenty of private conversations with these people. And they're some of the funnest, even though that's not a word, people to interview, because they'll tell stories and they'll tell circumstances and they'll break things down, and it's just really enjoyable. And the two people I'm thinking of is actually there's three. Chris Daniels, I interviewed him from Impact, and now he's in AEW, All Elite Wrestling, and then Kazarian. They were Bad Influence or The Addiction. So I did both of them, and they're funny people if you have private conversations, and I've had a few with them. And then the other one that I haven't released yet is Effie. And Effie is a very cool guy because he's the first and one of the only queer wrestlers out there. And he's a very down-to-earth guy, and he's like, and one of the things, and he might not appreciate me telling the story, but I'll tell it anyway. I asked him saying, hey, I never interviewed somebody who is queer and identifies as queer, and they're a wrestler. I'm a bit nervous. And he's like, dude, everything is perfectly fine, and people are a bit too sensitive. And he was one of those people that said, hey, ask me anything. I'm more than happy to answer anything you want to know. And so it was very cool. And then there was actually another person was also very cool like that, where I interviewed a transgender cosplayer. I interviewed her and her wife, and really cool people. And she was very open from the very start of it, and I didn't know how to respond, because obviously I'm very in tune to not pushing something. I wasn't going to push it unless it was brought up, and she brought it up, and she kind of laid it all out on the line, said, hey, this is what I am, and became a very, very cool interview because you got a real insight into a particular, I don't know the right word, but I guess viewpoint, scope, or like lifestyle. And I'm saying this with hesitation because I don't know the right words to describe this, but it was
It's almost raw and unfiltered.
Raw, unfiltered, and you understand a point of view, and you understand somebody's life, and you understand what they're going through when they reveal. And really, all 5 of those interviews were very honest, and you get it when you listen to them. And 2 of them haven't been released yet, but the other 3 are out there, and it's nice. And I'm just going to clarify this: if I offend somebody by what I just said, it wasn't meant to. I just don't know the right words to say it in. And if I offend somebody because of that, not my intention. With how I describe that situation, I just want to clarify that.
Awesome. Yeah, that's awesome that you've gotten to have those kind of conversations with people of all different walks of life.
It's such a fascinating world, and legitly, I would have never, since I started podcasting, which I think is almost 3 years now, because I fell into this genre. I had no intention of becoming a podcaster, and I fell into this. And so, if you told me 3, 4 years ago that I would be doing this, I probably would have been like, "What the hell's a podcast?" I didn't even know what a podcast was until I was like 6 episodes deep into my show. So, legitimately, this is like a happy accident.
That's always fun though, like discovering it. So, what are some projects that you have coming up?
Oh, projects coming up. I'm right now. I'm on hiatus. So one of the things that happened to me is that my main project, I've two, is I'm trying to get back into actually writing for my website. I've been taking a break, been dealing with stuff because my other project, which is the podcast, I've been on hiatus. Now, I have been working on it, but I haven't been releasing. And the reason why is I've come to the conclusion that unfortunately editing is a bitch. And she's not cooperative with me. And I edit all my episodes. I do it by myself. And so I have about 10 episodes completely done. And I'm actually working on the 11th. And the goal is to get about 16 or 20 of them done. And then I'm going to be re-releasing. So that's what I've been working on. And so if you go to my podcast, you'll notice that it stopped in like the middle of season two. I'm not done. I am legitly editing so that I have like 20 weeks of content and I can finish off my second season. And then beyond that, I just do a bunch of panels. Right now, I don't have anything booked, but typically I get a panel or several panels at AwesomeCon. I get trying to get panels at BlurredCon, Otakon, Anime USA, possibly Anime NYC, depending. And so AwesomeCon is in April, BlurredCon is in June or July, Otacon's in August, Anime USA is in October, November is Anime NYC, and so I right now had submitted about 12, I think, panels to AwesomeCon, and so I don't know when that is going to come about. I think they're going to let me know sometime in February, in the next like 28 days or so. So I'll know when I know, and it'll be up on my Facebook what I'm doing, what I got going on. I have some new panels that I've submitted, so that's going to be exciting. So yeah, I mean, and then beyond that, I'm working on a different project on YouTube that has nothing to do with any of this, where I'm working on a YouTube sort of stock sort of education slash videos of just working on defining a lot of terms on YouTube with stock trading and investing, as well as doing stock projections with drips and just doing that stuff. And so I'm really working to get that thing kicked off because that's a hobby of mine. I love investing, and that's something that is very personal to me, and I like talking about it. So I'm working on getting that kicked off as well.
Awesome, awesome. So, how can the listeners get a hold of you and, of course, find out more about you online?
So, all my social media is Pop Anime Comics or Pop Anime Comics Lounge. So, my website is popanimecomics.com. My Facebook page is Pop Anime Comics. And the reason why you should check out my Facebook page is I just mentioned all these places where I do panels. I live stream about 90% of them on Facebook, and they are up for about 3 weeks. So, from the time it live streams to about 3 weeks, it's up and you can watch it for free. So if you want to get a free panel and enjoy yourself and listen to something really cool, whether it's my Attack on Titan or a bunch of other panels I do, you can do that on Facebook, and that's completely free. And my Facebook page, again, is Pop Anime Comics. The podcast is pretty much everywhere. It's Pop Anime Comics Lounge. My Twitter is at Pop Anime Comics. I really do need the follows. I also need a Facebook page like, so greatly appreciate it if people do that. And I will sell myself and possibly my soul for Facebook likes. My Instagram, which I'm doing a bunch of cool stuff on Instagram, where I just showcase my Pop Funko collection and my comic collection. I usually put up 1 or 2 pictures a day from that type of stuff. So that's Pop Anime Comics. And I don't really know what's going on with my investing project at the moment. So I don't want to sell that just yet, but I will put it up on my Facebook page when it's good and ready to go. And when it's kicked off, just to let everybody know. That's probably the place where it'll be. I'll tweet it out. And I don't think I missed anything. Oh yeah, and if I owe you money, I'm just gonna pretend I don't know you, and I'm gonna walk away.
Nice. So remember, don't loan him any money unless you don't want to see it. So, just kidding. I'd like to thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to hang out with us here on Altered Geek.
Oh, my schedule is really not that busy, so it's all good.
Okay, so he's a free agent. Everybody interview him now.
Hey, I'm like John Cena. I go on both brands.
Yeah. So, anyways, thank you again, and until next time, get altered, get geeky with the Altered Geeks.